begin with Commissioner Elovich, please.
Lisa Elovich.
Julie Smith.
Alan Alexander.
W. William Smith.
Kathy Kiley.
Tina Stanford.
Otis Cruz.
Mark Capola.
Joe Franco.
And also with us from the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision, in the back, please. Laura Klucci. Melissa Freeman-Ruffin. And we have a fellow with us today as well. Just please state your name for the record. Thank you. Welcome to everybody. Thank you for your travel, and I'm thankful that you got here safely. As everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes from the August 22nd, 2016 meeting, our last board business meeting, and if so, is there a motion with respect to those minutes?
I make a motion that we accept the minutes as written.
Thank you. Motion on the floor to accept the minutes as written. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cruz to accept the minutes as written. Second made by Commissioner Alexander. Is there any question or discussion? All in favor to accept the minutes as presented, as written, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions?
One.
Commissioner Smith abstains. Thank you. The motion is passed and the minutes are accepted as written. Old business. We don't have any board training scheduled to share with you, but I do hope we get some more training in before the end of the year on topics that you've heard us discuss before and some others that Council Kiley and I are considering we will present to you. I would, however, urge everyone to make sure that you have completed your mandatory state employee training through SLMS. I recently also shared some information on continuing legal education training that's also available to those of us who are attorneys. And it's important that we complete our hours within the year for our training purposes that ends, I believe, at the end of September. So try to get your training hours in as soon as possible. Many of you have. I know you have because I've signed off on your training forms. Get those training forms into us, even if you're attending trainings in the community. If you send them with an agenda, then we can use those. Those can count for your annual training requirements, which are 40 hours for our title. Okay. At this point, I'm going to move on to policy, procedure, and directive discussion, and I'm going to turn it over to our counsel to give us an update on the regulations.
Okay. The regulations have been filed. They're actually going to be published in the State Register Wednesday, September 28th. That means there's a 45-day review and public comment period. Therefore, the date is actually going to be, bear with me for one moment. It's going to be until November 12th will be the public comment period, and then we'll discuss everything after we receive public comments with respect to those regs.
Okay. Thank you. And we hope to have some other regulatory changes in front of you before the end of the year so that we can just keep moving in that vein, as well as new directives. I sent around today, Ms. Freeman-Ruffin was kind enough to forward to all of you copies of new forms that the Department of Corrections is updating. These are forms that for the most part, should be of interest to us because these are forms and training opportunities and literature that have to do with the board interviews. So I sent a copy of a new pamphlet that they've developed for inmates, giving them general information about who we are and what we do and what to expect during the interview and how to prepare themselves for that interview. And they're going to be training inmates as well. They're going to have parole board preparation workshops. And I sent a copy of the outline for those workshops. These are workshops for the inmates, not the staff. The pamphlet and the workshop is being developed for the inmates. So I've asked, with respect to those documents and others that were sent today, and they were sent by email, and you have copies of most of them, that you take the time between today and close of business this Thursday, review it. If you have any ideas, anything you think that's vitally important. I mean, I'm not talking about minor things at this point because this has been vetted. Many of these things have been vetted for weeks now. So, I mean, if it's a glaring grammatical error, then I'm sure they'd be interested in that. But something that may not be a major point, I would suggest you might keep that to yourself. But if it's something that you think we would easily have consensus on, that isn't included, that should be included, send me those comments. I'll consider whether or not I think they should go past us to the work group that's working on these things, and then hopefully we'll see them in final draft, and they'll actually be delivering the workshop and the pamphlet. That's one thing. The other was a preparation checklist, and you'll see that the checklist, which I believe our own Commissioner Ferguson authored originally, has been updated. And it's been updated according to concerns that we have voiced many times now for many months. And I just draw your attention between the first checklist, which was revised last September 2015, and the June checklist of 2016, for example, sentencing minutes. Now you'll see in the newer version, there are lines for 3. And I suspect they're going to encourage staff that where they need more space to add attachments. Because what we find so often, and what sometimes is frustrating to us, is there's more than one set of sentencing minutes. There's more than one indictment. And so if you just say sentencing minutes on the checklist, and you just say sentencing minutes in the parole board report, which the facility staff prepared for us, you might miss the fact that you don't have all the minutes. You only have one set of minutes, for example. That's just an example. I'm not trying to open up any big discussion about that now. I realize that's important to us. But they're trying to accommodate what's important to us and for the accuracy of our records and the files that are being put before us by including a little bit more detail and more space where there's several indictments, for example, on the checklist itself. This was actually sent out a few weeks ago by myself through to Lissa, asking for feedback, and only one of you got back to me. So I'm hoping everybody's okay with this. I'm not necessarily asking for feedback. I'm just pointing it out to you that this is what they're looking to publish to their staff. But again, if you find something that you think is critically important, if you would get that information to me by close of business this Thursday, I'd appreciate it. Also, there is a PowerPoint training that had been prepared that is being updated. I didn't have Ms. Freeman Ruffin print that out for you because it's 76 slides. So in the interest of saving some paper, I didn't have her print that out for the meeting today, but we sent you an electronic copy. You also have an email that tells you what changes were made. And again, we're not trying to personalize it to our individual tastes. We need something that we can all agree on. And hopefully they've captured everything that's important. There may be 1 or 2 slides that we want to tinker with to add some more detail. For example, it was pointed out by Commissioner Elovich that who was one of the key trainers when they created this in the first place, that now that we're focusing on age at the time of the commission of the crime, particularly someone who was what we call a minor offender, someone 16, 17, 18 at the time of the crime, that information that the facility be sure to include that in the narrative that they draw from the pre-sentence investigation report, the age of the inmate at the time of the crime. Just like we like to see the age of the person that we're seeing in the summary. So, for example, something like that, if it doesn't appear to be spelled out in this version, we'll make that recommendation. So, again, Thursday, close of business, if you take the time to look at that. Okay? And then finally, the community supervision organization chart, the format. Now, this tells the facility staff where in the folders that are presented to us documents will be. Now, I'm sure we've all had the experience where one facility does it one way and another facility might do it a different way. Newer staff people who are used to building the parole board reports are putting things in places where we're not used to seeing them in a different kind of order. We certainly want all the facilities across the state to use the same format, to use the same organization. Again, it's not to our individual tastes. It's not to what the facility, how they're used to doing it. We're trying to create a method and an organization for every facility, no matter where they are, and so that we know, no matter what folder we're holding from whatever facility we're seeing and interviewing from, we know where things should be. And when they're not there, this will be our guide. Now, this has not been rolled out yet, so I wouldn't hold people to what you see here this week or next week. When it has become official, I will be sure to let all of you know, and I suggest you include this in your binder of documents you take with you when you do the boards. And I did ask the question, what are you going to do about the older files? Are you going to have facility staff go through and make sure that they reorganize things that aren't already organized this way? And I was assured that that is the plan. So this isn't going to be, we're not going to be unpleasant about it, I'm sure. We will be professional and encouraging to the facility staff who may be relearning a new format or learning a new format. We will be patient, but these are the kinds of things that you might include in your post-board reports once it has gone statewide, to say, this facility is not using its own published format. So, but again, this is not in place as yet. So I'll let you know when it is. If you see something that doesn't make sense to you, that you think we should recommend something different, let me know that too by close of business this Thursday. If I don't hear from you by close of business this Thursday, then your thoughts might not be taken into account before it's officially published, and we certainly don't want to be causing confusion. Okay?
Copies of that, it might be in the email. I haven't checked those yet, but I think,
It may be.
It's an
Okay.
email.
It may be in an
okay,
email.
because there are no copies
I'm
here.
sorry. But this, like I said, if it went, it's probably gone now twice. Maybe once, but I think you sent it again this morning, so you should have a couple copies of this. So just check your email, and it's called the Community Supervision Organization Format. Okay? All right. I want to move on to new business and mention a couple of things. One is that because Hudson has become a facility for the younger inmates, we were asked to accommodate the fact that they didn't have enough separate video equipment for the work release and the youth to go in person. And we did that at this past month's interviews for Hudson, Brookwood, and Hudson work release. And it went smoothly. I thought it went smoothly. Commissioner Alexander and I went, and they were prepared for us. It went very smoothly. We will accommodate that request again, maybe 1 more month, maybe 2 more months. Hopefully they'll have their equipment before the snow flies. But it did go very smoothly, and we will accommodate until they get their equipment, which may mean that the people scheduled for Hudson and Brookwood and Columbia for October need to be prepared to do that as well. So letting you know, if you have any questions, if you need any assistance on how to get there, work with Ms. Morris at the office, and the facility staff need to know who's coming, obviously, just like we prepare each week. But we felt very welcome, and it worked very, very nicely. We were able to get back here to conduct the rest of our video interviews for the other facilities, so that worked out well. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, because now there are essentially 10 of us in rotation, I believe, rather than trying to formulate the perfect panel to do a particular de novo, or to make sure that you have appropriate people present to handle a case where the month before there was a lack of consensus, rather than moving all of us, we're going to move that one case. This will allow us to have some stability in terms of our panels from the time we publish the schedule, which we've published October to all of you today, throughout the month, hopefully, instead of having to, frantically move people around. The only exception I would say is where we do have the benefit of having 2 3-person panels on any given week. We may need to adjust for the size of the board, but it won't be for 1 or 2 cases. And thankfully, our de novos have gone down considerably, so we don't have this mad scramble to get so many of them done in any given week. But we do have a couple of cases that have been seen 1 or more times and resulted in lack of consensus, and for those, we'll move those to wherever we have 3-person panels, wherever possible. So that's our plan going forward for the foreseeable future until we get till we have more board members in rotation. Also, I wanted to make the suggestion that we do what we talked about doing but didn't opt to do several months ago. When we decided that we were going to change the schedule, and instead of going to Rochester twice a month, have certain facilities seen from Buffalo, we also had the option of moving that Buffalo board to the last week of the month. At the time, I wasn't particularly concerned about it because there were more of us in rotation. Now, it's a concern because it's important that we make this business meeting. We discuss a lot of important things. We've got important votes going on, and I need as many of you here each month as possible. So I would like to be able to reach out to the facilities and say, we want to move the Buffalo board from the 3rd week to the 4th week, and the Rochester board from the 4th week to the 3rd week. And if there's no difficulty with the facilities, do that as quickly as October. And if there's any comment, whatever, I'm happy to hear it now, but I really think that will help me to make sure that we have a quorum at each monthly board business meeting.
I concur. Having thought about it this morning, as this is my 2nd month in the row going to Buffalo, I also thought that there might be even a different option, that we could run the week of the board meeting, Syracuse and Utica, and then the 4th week run Buffalo and Rochester, because we now have state reporters who cover the Utica boards, and then you would have people even closer for the board meetings, So people would only be going as far as Syracuse versus Rochester. But certainly your solution is better than going to Buffalo. Just a thought.
So I'm sorry, walk me through the Syracuse Utica piece again?
Are you just saying instead of switching out Buffalo for Rochester, switch out Buffalo for Syracuse?
I'm saying that the third week, run a board both in Utica and Syracuse. So move the fourth week of Syracuse to the third week and move the Attica board to the fourth week, and then you would have both Rochester and Buffalo the fourth week, and then you would have everybody closer for the board meeting.
So she's saying, in addition to moving the Buffalo to the fourth week, also switch out the Syracuse board. Well, she's right. It would bring everybody at least that much closer, which is about.
Maybe a lot
Or
of
just switch Syracuse instead of Rochester?
Third week.
So the third week, you would run both Utica and Syracuse, and the fourth week, you would run Rochester and Buffalo.
Yeah.
Switch the Attica and Mohawk. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying?
That's right.
I see. So we're going second week, third week with Syracuse Utica?
Why not just take the Buffalo board, put it in the last week, and take the Syracuse board and put it in the second to last week?
Isn't that what I said?
I think we're all saying the same thing.
But which Syracuse board are you thinking of
Auburn,
moving?
McCormick.
The Syracuse board from the second week or the Syracuse board?
No, the last one, Auburn, McCormick, Cayuga, change that into the square that says Attica, Wyoming. Switch those two.
The last week will be,
Yeah, that's what I meant. I just didn't say it
I
as.
said it in less words as usual. Just kidding.
Okay.
We're on video.
Okay, I think I understand. The panel that begins with Auburn, now week 4, we would have that move where Attica is.
correct.
And Attica would move to week 4.
Just, Joe just brought this up. If you look at, I wish we had a big screen here. If you look at Attica, Wyoming, and Wendy, I think, if you look at that one and then look to the upper left, you'll see Mohawk, Southport, Elmira. If you look to the lower left, you'll see Auburn, McCormick, Cayuga, right? If you switch those squares either way, it's the same thing.
Oh, you can't.
No,
Because it's Buffalo's next door.
two Buffaloes.
They're both Buffalo.
Mohawk's not Oh, Buffalo, you're right. Okay. I didn't see that. All right, so if you just swap those squares out. Yeah, I guess that would work.
Yes, right, and that's what I'm thinking too. But let me try to put that in motion. I'll put something in writing, send it all out to all of you, and then copy and then I'll forward it to Docs and see if we can do that beginning in November. Okay. All right, thank you.
Sorry.
Yes.
No, since we're talking about the schedule, facilities, I can do the Bill Smith breakdown, but I didn't do it today. I didn't have time. Since May, let's see, the Albion, Orleans, and Collins ward had been up in the 80s. The Lakeview Guan board has been lower in numbers, okay? And I looked at the numbers And on average, Lakeview has like 12 less cases than Orleans.
Okay.
And my thought was, is there any chance we could put Orleans with Gowanda and put Lakeview with the Albion and Collins Board? Start the day with Lakeview and then go to Albion. Because Lakeview's averaging since May about 6 cases or 7. And Orleans is having about somewhere between 17 to 25 since May. And since, now that we're down to 2 members on that panel, Mark and I started, just for example, and even the month before, with Ed and myself, 3 days. Mark and I finished on Wednesday at 8 o'clock. And we started on Monday.
This was Albion Orleans College.
Yes.
So maybe to almost try to even it out a little bit or bring it down under the 70 mark or at
And
least under the 80 mark.
It would help because Collins, it's tough with how they like to start because of security issues, side 1, side 2, and SHU. It just is easier to start them Wednesday morning, like at 8:30. But when we start with Albion first on Tuesday, sometimes Orleans we can't get all the way through, and we have to start Orleans on Wednesday, and it screws up the schedule for Collins starting on Wednesday.
It messes up their transport guys. So then what they do is they wind up waiting. And then, like this week, they waited, and we had this issue where we had to go to Syracuse, or switch to Syracuse. We were all ready, and when we came back, they had a whole different group of guys there that we didn't prepare for. So we didn't even start till almost 10:30. So I understand that they had that. They couldn't have the SHU guys sitting with the other guys. But like Joe's right, if we were to be able to be consistent somehow and start them at 8:30, there's less of a chance that whole thing was going to happen. We were a mess all day Wednesday. I mean, we didn't even know who was in the chair. They didn't know who was in the chair. We didn't know. It was basically just we were flying, blind the whole day. So, and then when you throw an interpreter in the mix, we were a mess.
I can give you the breakdown.
The point, I do. I appreciate that. And I know that there are others among us who've had similar concerns just for what their experience in terms of the caseload has been at different groupings of facilities over the last few months. And we know things can ebb and flow, but we may be starting to see the beginning of a trend that isn't going to go back. And you were talking about downstate,
Like a change
for
in
example.
policy. The policy now is if a guy's going to be moved, we even just found something out. That's a new policy that affects our numbers. If your board is within 2 months, they won't move you if you're ready to be moved. Or they won't let you move into a program, which is not good. But they won't move you. So now that automatically increases that board consistently because those guys would have been spread out throughout the state. They would have went to whether Gowanda or wherever their program assignments are. They would have been kind of spread out. Now they're all being kind of corralled, and that's what's happened at downstate. So that is probably, if they keep the policy, that's historically going to be high now, higher than it's always been. So
Something to prepare for as we try to balance these out as much as possible.
But also to add on, Albion's numbers are increasing even more because they started to have an accelerated ASAP program, and there's more merit appearances. Instead of having it a 6-month program, it's a 3-month program. It's 6 hours a day. So we're seeing more merit appearances with these women. And so that adds to it. So Albion's a full.
we had a lot of cases, I think, that were going to be, they were merit at their initial, right? So now we had to do the merit first, they're all going to come back. So there's at least 5 extra cases, I think it was, that are going to be back next month automatically if they didn't get approved. But, you know, that would be an additional 5 cases. And if that trend stays, you're going to constantly have an additional load the next month. So that increases that whole board.
All right, that's a good point. Does anybody just off today, in terms of a perspective on this, would anyone today have any objection or concern about me inquiring about that change too, to maybe begin before the end of the year? And if not, then might as well make that inquiry too. Nobody here has a problem with it. Okay, all right, then I will do that. As has been mentioned, probably too optimistic to think that we can do this in time for October. We don't want to cause any confusion with the cases that are already on the schedule to be seen any particular time, or time that the facilities think that they have before the facilities are going to be seen to receive documents that they may be waiting for, things of that nature. But I think maybe as early as November, if they tell me December, or if they tell me the beginning of the year, it's still better that we're putting these changes in planning. So hopefully we can get that going right away. Okay.
Thanksgiving, and then you got Christmas, those 2 weeks, whichever boards those fall in those weeks, they may actually be a bigger problem than we think. So even if it was optimistic, if there was a 2 or 3 month period that they would have to get prepared for, and the way the weeks wind up, you won't have people, whether it's inmates or facilities, being frustrated over it might only be a 1 week difference instead of a whole month difference for their schedule. They might not miss a month and then go, wait, but now I got to go into this month, so now I missed like a month and a half. It might only be a week, and then, you know, it's not that big of a deal to miss a week.
Can't hurt to ask.
Oh no, I'm just saying I think that the switching only because that one board might have been off that week because of the holiday. I just don't know how they all fall, the schedule falls, but you know, even if we had some time, that's helpful.
So that gives me some good things to work on to help to balance things out and to make sense, and to again help to get as many of us here at the board business meeting as possible. The other thing I wanted to be sure to mention during our new business is to thank you for your flexibility in making stops on your way past or whenever you're close to Albany, to come in and give some attention to the appeals, the decision appeals. We need a rotation of all of us to review and to sign those appeals. And there's an appeal on the table I haven't signed because I need to talk to our counsel about it, because we're getting to the point with at least one of those cases where most of us can't sign. So then I'm thinking, okay, so if I sign it, now, you know, what will this mean in terms of who's going to be left for a panel? So, I mean, it's getting to that point with some cases. So, you know, so that's why we need a variety of people. So anytime you're close to Albany, even if you're only coming as far as Syracuse, take some extra time, because this is part of our job. And I don't have any concerns about your travel expenses. It's more important to me that every individual who's appealing any group of our decisions has the full scope of the rest of us to review their cases and make reasonable and lawful decisions on the appeal. So thank you, and continue to do that, and make it a point to do that. Please try not to wait until I ask you. Just assume that there's always going to be something there for you to sign. If you're close enough, I'd certainly appreciate it if you'd come and do that. And we're not going to be sending files across the state, so that's not going to happen. So please come and spend some time with the appeals files.
I thought that we weren't doing that. We weren't operating under that. If you signed the appeal, even if you weren't on the case, that if you signed the appeal for the de novo, that you could still sit on that case. I thought that isn't that the way it was?
Yes,
or it is?
That's where it is. Right.
Oh, okay. Well, because with the way you said it, that if you signed it, then what do you do? What happens with the panel? I thought that you were saying you couldn't sit on it if you signed the full.
No.
Okay.
I
All right.
No, I'm concerned we're just running out of people who can sign, period. And also R3YDs in Albany as well. Right now, we have 2 commissioners regularly scheduled in Albany, and we get a high number. I know New York gets probably the bulk of those, and now we have only 1 commissioner in New York. So I will also mention that I need all of us to be available to go to New York, even beyond the 1 week that we have boards there. And let me know your availability. We can talk a little bit more about that during executive session, because I don't want to discuss our individual schedules in advance of boards, but I put that on the table as something that we desperately need. We need victim impact coverage in Long Island and in New York City, and we need attention to the 3YDs and board actions that come through the New York office, particularly weeks 2 through 4 of every month. And again, we can get into specifics in terms of who's available right now, looking forward during executive staff. Okay. I don't have any other items of new business. Does anyone else have any items of new business you want to discuss? Okay. Okay. All right. Then we're going to move on. I want to introduce you to our New York State Excelsior Fellowship recipient, Ms. Prasad. She has come and joined us in board interviews in the Albany office. She's working with counsel's office. She's a recent Albany Law School graduate, correct? And she's taken the bar and she's awaiting her results. We wish her the best with that. She's been on the dean's list while at Albany Law School. She's also a graduate of Florida Atlantic University. She's got great legal experience. I have her resume here if you want to know more about her. But I just recommend that you introduce yourself to her before you go wherever your duties take you this week. And when you're in the Albany office, stop in. She has intelligent questions, but not a lot, because she's a bright young woman. And I'm sure it would benefit her to meet each of you and to learn about your careers up to this point. So welcome, and thank you for joining us for our board business meeting today. I want to also announce a retirement. Deputy Superintendent Christine Daggett of Bear Hill Correctional Facility is going to be retiring after 28 years. And I have information about a luncheon that that her friends and colleagues are hosting for her at the end of October, Friday, October 28th in Malone, New York. So if you want information about that, we have information that you may want to attend or at least send your regards. Also, in the spirit of my habit now of sharing correspondence, good and bad, with the board, if it's individual, I'll send that to you under separate cover. But sometimes we get things that are general enough that I think it bears a read during the board business meeting. And so this was a letter I received on September 7th of this year from a church in Florida. I won't name the church and I won't name the pastor who sent it, but it was just a lovely note, and I wanted to share it with all of you. Ms. Stanford, as the chairwoman of the Board of Parole for the state of New York, I can only imagine the intense pressure you have. Prisoners and their families want your decision to be favorable to them. The victims want peace of mind. The public will always want to second guess your decision. Please know you are being uplifted in prayer. And then it gives scripture, and it says we read about the Lord giving Solomon wisdom. And another scripture, and Solomon was given his wisdom. Please know that you and your entire board are being prayed for daily. In Jesus, signed by the pastor, and then he gives another scripture. So those of you who want to review this individually, you're welcome to. But I take comfort in knowing that there are a lot of intelligent people out there who realize how hard this job is and who are wishing us well and lifting us up in prayer. So I wanted to share that with all of you because it was meant for all of us. So that's it in terms of correspondence, announcements, and invitation. Without further ado then, if there's no further business for the public record, I would like to entertain a motion to enter into executive session, and at the close of executive session, adjourn our meeting. Is there such a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Smith moves to enter into executive session, at the close of which adjourn our meeting. Is there a second? Second. Okay. I'll take the second from Commissioner Alexander. And any questions or discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? We are in executive session. Thank you.